Hey everyone, I figured today I'd make a complete care and breeding guide for gargoyle geckos. Gargoyle geckos are a new Caledonian gecko. They thrive at about room temperature, so room temperature in the winter for me is between 72 to 75, in the summer 78 to 80. If you live someplace colder, or if you have a colder room you keep them in, you might want to look into supplemental heat, whether it be a basking light or maybe a heat pad on the side. If you keep them too cool, like in the low 60s, their metabolisms slow way down. They don't eat as much, they don't grow as fast, they don't do as well. The cool thing about gargoyle geckos, I'll grab one real quick. This is the male to this group. And he's been breeding for me for about 4 years now. And you can see that even though he's a little nervous and he wants to run, he's not going anywhere very fast. These guys are incredible. They're great for handling. They're very calm. See if I get him to face the camera. Of course, he doesn't want to. But outside of that temperature range, you just also want to keep them with some humidity. So what I usually do is I mist them once heavily before lights out, just to make sure they have water droplets to drink when they wake up at night. These guys are nocturnal. So UVB isn't a requirement, but still can be beneficial, especially if you have females dropping eggs. That egg production can really weigh heavy on their system, and you want to make sure that they have plenty of UVB to help process calcium. You see this male has his original tail. So unlike crested geckos, gargoyle geckos will regenerate their tails, and they're typically a little bit discolored and a little smaller when they do. But they do regrow them, which is awesome. And also, gargoyle geckos are polymorphic. So there's a bunch of different genes in play when breeding them. Usually, when you breed them together, the babies will look like some type of combination of mom and dad. And sometimes you get random oddballs that don't really look like the parents at all. The only real genetics with gargoyles right now is, I believe, Phantom, which gives their eyes more of a black color, like a jet black eye. And as you can see, usually they have a grayish to blue eye. We'll go ahead and put them in here. As far as their enclosure, they're in 1818 by 24s. And I use Exoterras only because I really enjoy this really deep substrate retainer right here. So I can give them like 4 to 5 inches, and this slopes back a little deeper in the back. But they have 4 to 5 inches of soil to lay their eggs in. I do have 1 male and 2 females in here. So I keep a 1.2 breeder group in every 1818 by 24. I usually don't go beyond that. I do house them all year round together, and I have almost no problems with them fighting. As you see, they all still have the original tails. Sometimes when you first introduce them, they can be a little bit territorial and aggressive with each other. So when I go to introduce them, I usually have them all housed separately in plastic totes with cork and fake plants that you see here. And when I go to introduce them, I put them all in a brand new neutral territory, which is a new enclosure, the 1818 by 24. And whatever cork bark they usually hide in is the ones I move into here. So each one of them have their own pre-scented homes that they can retreat to when they're scared. And I found that really helps with their aggression. So if they already have scent marked territories, you put in here and give them all their own space to get away from each other with those scent marked territories, they don't fight nearly as much. And of course, once they get established together, you're in the clear. If they've been fine together for several months, they'll be fine together for the rest of their lives. In my experience, gargoyle geckos, typically, here's a female, she's getting super jumpy on me. But in my experience, gargoyle gecko females will lay a single clutch of eggs, 2 eggs, every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on if they're in season or not. Even if they're not in season, they'll still lay eggs all year round. Just in the wintertime, when it cools down, they really slow down egg production. And as long as you're keeping up with the nutrition, the UVB, the calcium, you don't have to separate them for the winter or get them to stop producing, as long as they're staying healthy. If you notice noticing a female's looking skinny, not as healthy as she could be, I would pull her and separate her for the winter. But I won't do that unless I see that they're looking a little thin and not as healthy as they could. You can do vivariums with these guys. I do keep their enclosures bioactive, even though there's no live plants. I do have isopods and springtails in the substrate that'll break down the waste. These guys do eat and poop a lot, and I like the isopods, the bioactive isopods and springtails, just to break down all the waste. It saves me a lot of time cleaning. The only thing I usually clean constantly is their front doors. Nothing drives me crazy like when they poop on the front of the glass and you get a nice long streak down the front. They do that constantly, so every few days I'll come in with some ammonia-free window cleaner and paper towel and just wash the front glass and get rid of those poop streaks. The adults I feed every about 3 to 4 days. I feed them Pangea MRP, meal replacement powder. I find right now that Pangea is really the best MRP on the market. I used to feed nothing but Repashy, but a couple years ago Repashy changed the recipe, and I noticed my babies just weren't getting as thick and growing as fast off of the Repashy. And then as soon as I switched to Pangea, they started eating more and growing faster. So I strongly recommend Pangea. I usually just do the breeder and growth formula. I don't really play around with flavors too much. After talking to a lot of peers, I've heard that sometimes you just get addicted to a certain flavor, and I don't want to get into a position where this group only eats watermelon and that group only eats banana flavored and this group only eats that flavor. I'd rather just keep it simple to keep everyone on the same diet. It's been working great for me. And the adults I really don't give insects to. The MRP is pretty much the only thing they get. I noticed early on years ago when I used to try to give them monthly crickets or dubia roaches as treats, they were just getting way too obese. When they're young and growing, supplementing them with bi-weekly or monthly treats, as in crickets, dubia roaches, stuff like that, they'll get thicker, they'll grow faster, and it's really great for the babies. But for adults, I just noticed that if you implement insects into their diet, they just get way too obese with the MRP combo. So that's definitely something to consider. But yeah, I absolutely love gargoyles. In my opinion, they're way more handleable than crested geckos. They're way more relaxed. They can get a little nervous and jump out of your hand, but they don't book it like crested geckos do. Most of the time they take a leap and then they just sit and chill. You pick them back up and then maybe they leap again, but they're not running anywhere. They're just kind of taking that nervous jump and then calming right down. And next we'll show you how I raise the babies, so we'll get that in 1 second. Okay, this is how I take care of the babies or hatchlings. So real quick, we got this all set up for this brand new hatchling right here. And he is absolutely beautiful. You can see that he is starting to shed, and underneath that shed he's revealing color. You can see on the back of his neck there. So sometimes babies, when they hatch out, they can be very dark, if not jet black. And as they shed and grow, they'll gain a little bit of color at a time and just become overall brighter as they grow. So right now it's hard to tell what he's going to look like as an adult, but I'm already seeing good signs he's going to be beautiful. As soon as he finishes shedding the skin, he's going to be absolutely incredible. And sometimes they take the leap of faith. You can see him back there. He is A-okay. These guys are built for impact, for lack of a better term. They can take some pretty gnarly leaps of faith and be absolutely A-okay. If he hit the floor from this height, he'll be completely unfazed. Now, something to mention too is I use RO water, reverse osmosis water, when I mist out all my enclosures and the baby's tubs. That's only because I hate the mineral stains you get with tap water. So the fact that none of my enclosures have calcium or mineral stains on the glass or even the totes is just because I use RO water. It's just my preference. You can use tap water to mist them down, but then you're dealing with tons of just calcium and mineral stains. As far as the baby totes, I've done videos before on these. Paper towel as a substrate, putting a couple pieces of cork, but I wedge them in place, so there's very little wiggle room with them. A couple fake plants. So even though he probably won't eat till he's finished shedding, I'm still giving him some MRP, just because this could be about 2 to 3 days before I go through and remist them and refeed them. These plastic totes really hold humidity for a long time. 2 or 3 days and still water droplets behind the plants in these totes. And the paper towel really helps me see them, see their poops, so I know they're eating and doing fine. Next, I'll show you some of its older siblings and how much larger they are. Just for a reference, there's 2, 4, 6 more eggs in here. That should be hatching in the next week or two. I have another 10 eggs here that should be hatching in about 3 to 4 weeks. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll just keep posting videos of the hatchlings and how they grow and develop, and you can really see how much they transform from hatchling to adult in color. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll move on to the next baby. So now, this one is the last baby's older sibling. As you can see, this one's completely fired down, and it's showing all that great red and orange color. Now let me adjust my light real quick. There we go. And that's completely fired down. And you see the hints of red down the dorsal pattern. This one is a nice chunky little baby. Growing and developing fast. And this is what I target when I breed. It's just that high color, red base, orange stripe, red dorsal. Fired up, that red in the dorsal is a lot more solid and pronounced. But since it's completely fired down, it lost all its red but kept all its orange, which is really neat. As far as Gargoyle Gecko morphs, there's 2 primary morphs. There's striped and retic. And beneath retic, there's blotched, which is a retic pattern with large blotches of color. And for stripes, there is base color and striping color. So this would be a red base, orange and red stripe. And you can see this baby was not this colorful when I first hatched out. This color has been developing as it grows. And as they grow, they'll keep developing even more color. But that one is the older sibling of the hatchling I just showed you guys. And we'll move on to the next sibling. So moving on to the next baby. This is a clutch mate of the last one I showed you, and the oldest sibling of all 3 that we've seen so far. Oh, they want to jump down there. I only put them in these little plastic containers. The one you saw I opened, just so they don't jump around while I'm cleaning the paper towels and giving them food. I don't keep them in there. I don't recommend anyone keeps gargoyle geckos in containers that small. This right here is the ideal setup for a baby. And you see this is a very, very nice plump little guy. Bright orange stripes. He is partially fired down. Or he may be completely fired down because his red dorsal pattern isn't vibrant or vivid at all. But he still has a lot of dark black on his sides. So it's hard to tell if he's fired up, fired down right now. We'll let him back in there. Real quick, just to let you guys know how I incubate these guys. So this is where we just pulled that first hatchling from that you guys saw, the one that just hatched out last night. And what I do is I keep them in vermiculite. You can buy this at any gardening store. And what I do is I dump a bunch of water into this, and then I press down the vermiculite and tip it over and dump out all the excess water. Of course, I can't tip it with eggs in here. But that's usually how I set them up. As for incubation temperature on the eggs, this room is usually between 76 to 78 degrees, and that's what I incubate them at, room temperature. The cooler you incubate them, the longer it takes for them to develop, but a lot of times you get bigger, healthier babies when you slowly incubate. If you were to crank the temperature up to like 82, 84 degrees, they'll incubate much faster, but you'll get a much smaller, thinner hatchling out of it. So sometimes slow and steady for gargoyle gecko incubation is just the way to go. And we'll move on to the next one. And this is a baby from the group that I was showing you guys earlier in the video. So dad was the neon red base and mom was the orange stripe. Now this is a really cool baby. So the whole reason I put that group together is because the father, Fired Up, is just such a bright neon red base. And I wanted to have that bright neon red base with the red and orange dorsal stripes. And you see this baby's pretty unique. All that jet black, as it develops, I'm sure turned into a neon red. I noticed that the darker the black as a baby, the brighter the red will be as an adult with the base color. And you can even see some of that pinky orange color in the side flanks where it's white. So watching this baby develop be really, really cool. But this is unrelated to the first 3 babies I showed you. But nonetheless, absolutely gorgeous. And we'll put in a little MRP, and then we'll move on to the last baby. Okay, and here is the oldest and the last baby so far of 2024. This one is quite beautiful. I'm already seeing a lot of red starting to peek through, so this is going to be a really nice red base as it develops. If you guys are curious to see how these guys develop and how their colors change over time, make sure you like and subscribe. I will do compilation videos of all these babies as they develop, so that'll be fun to see. And if you guys are interested in supporting the channel, we have Captive Yeti Exotic t-shirts. I'll put my email in the description. If you guys want to support the channel, support the animals, you always can buy a t-shirt. It's always appreciated. And I'll keep posting as regularly as possible. We do have a lot of things hatching out, a lot of things incubating. So this is going to be a really great year for us, and thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.